Hello, I am back. We're in the final push from Rails 6 to Rails 7. Started about 3 weeks ago on Rails 3.2, and over the course of the 5 pairing sessions, we've made it. It's just me right now, hoping that some other folks from Thoughtbot might be able to join, but that's okay. And if you're tuning in, I really appreciate it. If you're watching later, thank you so much. We are upgrading the Ruby Science, which is a book about Ruby and Rails best practices, example Rails app. It was written over 10 years ago, started in Rails 3.2, and hadn't been upgraded in a long time. So we've been upgrading that. It's a survey application. Where you can build surveys, add questions to those surveys, and people can then submit their answers to the surveys. And we have been working on upgrading. Let me turn off the music. Thanks again for joining me. So when we last left, which was about 2 hours ago, we had just upgraded to Rails 6. All of the specs were passing, and we got rid of all the deprecation warnings. So we are still getting this net protocol already initialized stuff. We tried to get rid of it and to fix that problem, and we weren't able to do it. So we decided to ignore it and hope that it goes away as we do our upgrades. It hasn't caused us problems yet, and so I'm content to do that again. So we're all set. Rails 6 is done. We're gonna create a new branch for 6.1. Oh, turns out I hadn't committed. Hold on. I had totally missed committing. So since it's just me solo right now, feel free to help out along the way, drop questions in the chat, all that good stuff. I've got it up on my screen here and I'll see it. So these are config changes, but then the thing that we have the new framework for defaults for 6.0. Okay, they're all commented out. Now, off the top of my head, I'm forgetting whether these are, be sure to, this file contains migration options to ease your Rails 6.0 upgrade. Once upgraded, flip defaults one by one to migrate to the new default. Okay, so we're not done with our Rails 6 upgrade yet. We actually, in order to fully be on Rails 6, we need to flip these and make sure that everything's working as expected. I think it would be easy at this point to say, no, let's move on. Let's go to 6.1. I've already created the branch. Let's just make it happen. But again, it's really easy to get ahead of yourself, leave and not deal with things, and then end up in a scenario where too much is broken all at once and you don't know how to fix it. Even this protocol thing, it has me worried. But we've already tried to fix it. We've already spent a fairly decent amount of time dealing with it. And so at that point, we just have to move on. But I wish my so for those of you who weren't on previous streams or missed it, specs are a little bit slower now. We're still on a version of Ruby that doesn't run on Apple Silicon, and so I'm on a slower emulated x86 instance. But we're getting close. Then it's either the next version of Rails or the will be able to run on Apple Silicon. We'll make a decision at that point about whether I switch over to the computer that's right in front of me to finish out the upgrade. I really appreciate it, Myra. The support. Thank you very much. I believe in myself, and I believe in you. It's a little disappointing that there's several of these, and specs are, it's just going to take a little while to work through this. But we don't really have, assuming we want to change to the 6.0 defaults, which I do, we don't really have another option. I suppose another option would be to turn them all on. Run the tests if everything passes. Actually, let's do that. The downside is if something does break, we'll have to backtrack. But in the interest of time, now this is the kind of thing where if it was really, so, you know, these specs are slow for the size of this application, but if for a larger application, this would be a relatively normal spec run. So this is the kind of work that I would do. I wouldn't necessarily focus exclusively on doing this loop right now. I would probably also be working on something else. And I would make the change, run the specs, let it run in the background while I'm working on something else. So, but let's make the change to all of them. And hope for the best. If we can get through this, then I can say to the people watching the stream, then the new release of Ruby Science should happen next week. And the goal, or what part of what we're doing is making a web-based version of all the content, or each page, or each chapter of the book is available as its own page that's has nice anchors on it and can be linked to individually. So you want to say, like, here's how you apply single responsibility principle in Rails. We'll have a page for that we'll be able to link people to. That's much easier than the PDF, which is what we have now. Awesome. So we made those changes to the defaults, and it's all in, and it's all working. So let's make that git commit now. Awesome. Okay, so now we're fully on Rails. Oh, thank you, Hera. I totally forgot to share my screen. Thanks for pointing it out. I apologize. Thank you for catching it. This is what not having a co-host right now is doing. You're my official co-host. now. Thank you. Okay, so here's everything that I just did and was talking about with the defaults. So okay, so we're back in the gem file. We're going to go to Rails 6.1, last patch of 6.1 was that. So I realized I didn't switch to the branch. So I stashed my change to the gem file, switch to the branch. We're now in the correct branch. Yep. And we're going to 6.17, bundle update Rails. So, like I've been saying all day, I'm eventually expecting us to run into trouble with some of these version numbers that we've locked down on Loofah, Rack, and Nokogiri. But we haven't run into trouble yet. So I'm reluctant to change anything while we're not running into trouble. But I'm expecting at some point we're going to get to a version of Rails which has trouble with these older versions of things. The reason why we needed to lock them down is because they needed to be updated, but they were updating to versions that were way too new for the version of Ruby we were on and for the version of Rails we were on. And so it was breaking things. So one of the let's talk a little bit about the setup while this is running. I haven't talked too much about it. So we're using UTM to get an emulated x86 instance of Ubuntu. So that's what this is here. And then, and I'm not sure why it's not waking up the screen, but then that's connected in Visual Studio Code running locally via SSH to that instance. So that's been working well. This instance is fully emulated on ARM, Intel on ARM, so it is running a little bit more slowly. The other thing I noticed is resolving gem dependencies. When we hit like Rails 5 and the version of bundler and Ruby that we needed to go to there, things slowed down quite a bit. And I'm not sure why that is. Nothing else changed really, but things slowed down quite a bit. And so I'm looking forward to either being able to get to a native system soon or getting to a newer version where apparently whatever is happening now to slow things down gets better. There's 3 lines of resolving dependencies. 4. There we go. Okay, cool. I've been having to run. Yeah, so we're it's not able to resolve against Rake. We are doing less than version 11. We were previously running into problems with rake. So let's just bundle update. I removed the version number entirely. That may be the wrong thing to have done, but hey, I did it. As Fenya was saying earlier today, it's Friday, which I'm not sure exactly how that applies in this situation, but it is. It's a factual statement. Let's just check the versions of rake. 13. We were on 10 point something. 13 came out 2019. So we're right around the version September 2019, and 6.1 came out December of 2020. So we should be able to, assuming there's no Ruby problems, so thanks for saying the screen is frozen. Let me look into that. So I think that solved it there. So it's working now. So what we had was we had couldn't resolve the version of rake. So I removed the version we were hard coding, and I'm doing now a bundle update Rails rake. So we need a version of Rails 12.2 or higher. Sorry, a version of rake 12.2 or higher. And I was looking up the version. The latest version is 13, which came out in 2019. Rails 6.1. First version came out December of 2020. So we should be able to go all the way to 13 with this version of Rails. So I'm going to let it try. My only concern is whether the version of Ruby can resolve properly. There's no dependency listed here. Something looks wrong with your version of Emacs. That's I don't know if that's a joke or not, and you're saying I should be using Emacs, but I'm using Visual Studio Code with Vim bindings. So what I'm actually using. So if we go over to the gem spec for rake, gem specs will usually have a Ruby version in them if they need to depend on a particular version of Ruby. This one, which is the version or latest version, requires Ruby 2.2 or higher. So we should be fine. And I indeed see it's resolving and now installing everything in the background. We're all set. Upgrading FactoryBot. We can close that tab. We are done upgrading our spec. Close that tab. We took care of our sprockets upgrade. We can take care of that. Close that tab. And we upgraded shoulda matchers when we hit Rails 6.0, I believe. And so that's all set. Or maybe it was 5.2. And we can close that tab. Okay, we are all installed. I should be able to stop you saying bundle exec rake and just say rake now, because we upgraded rake and it was having trouble before. Yeah, Fabio, we've made it. We're in the home stretch now, 6.1. I think I had said mistakenly before that 6.2 was next, but there is no 6.2. So we're going to be able to go right from 6.1 to 7. So I'm excited about that. Whoa. Okay, so we ran the specs. We got complete and utter failure. Every single spec failed. We didn't run the upgrade task yet, so that's fine. I like to run the specs just to see what the scope of the problem is. Okay, so we're getting wrong scope error, and it's coming from our spec. So something is horribly wrong with our spec. We are still hard coding a slightly older version of our spec, so that's probably the reason why. Do we want to do that first, or do we want to run the upgrade task? I think we're gonna do that. So now the reason why I'm removing the hard code version instead of even looking to see what version I should go to is that 6.1 is more modern. We really needed to be careful earlier when we were on like 4.1. We were running into gems going way too new and then breaking. But we're more modern now. That's just a lower risk. And so I feel more confident removing the version, letting it go to the latest version, and resolving any error that crops up, because I know we're not too far away from when this stuff was originally created and when everything knew about everything else that we're using. That's the problem. It's like RSpec Rails didn't know about or drop support for Rails 4.2 a long time ago. Actually, really what I should do is remove the versions. If I'm going to remove it from RSpec Rails, I probably should also do it from these other things as well. But let's let this go and see what happens. Yeah, maybe ask why not do it one by one? Impatience, I guess, is the honest answer. You could totally do it one by one. This bundling is going slowly enough that it makes me not want to do it. And Fabio asks, did we update Ruby before updating Rails? Oops, we did earlier today. In the morning, we went to 2.5. But according to our compatibility chart, we're cool on 2.5 with 6.1. So we don't need to change Ruby versions until going to 7. And since that's so slow, because it means we have to compile all the gems and everything again, I'm staying on this version for now until we absolutely need to upgrade the Ruby version. And 2.7 works on ARM. So we should be able to, in the jump to Rails 7, I'm going to switch from using the x86 instance to using my Mac. Okay, so RSpec upgraded itself. Let's see if that got rid of the error. Looking at this compatibility table, it looks like with 6.1, in theory, 6.1 supports 3.0. And so in theory, we could switch over to the ARM. I'm realizing now we could switch over to ARM and go up to 2.7, but I'd be doing it in the middle of the 6.1 upgrade. And I don't want to do that because I could introduce too much change all at once. So same difference. What we'll probably do is get 6.1 passing on There we go. Look at that. Get 6.1 passing on the instance. After everything's looking good there, check out this branch on straight on my Mac and do that. Finish there. Okay. Oh, wow. I was not quite expecting that. The same thing happened with 6.0, which was I was expecting to have to make a bunch of config changes. Didn't really happen. Things passed pretty quickly, and we're back in that situation with 6.1. I wonder, I think part of it is we're back in more modern times, so less stuff is broken. I also suspect that Rails upgrades got better when they started doing the new version defaults. So it's not changing all of the defaults from my previous version to enforcing the change to the new defaults. It's much gentler about that. So let's run our update. Actually, let's git commit. So this is the start of the Rails 6.1 upgrade. And now we can run our update. And that's going to change the config files, or walk us through changing the config files, establish the new platform defaults. So boot changed again. Looks like it's just changing from single quotes to double quotes. So that, yes, I remember that. Great. Okay, so we can take that. Routes, we're not going to overwrite the routes, but we are looking to see whether anything changed. It's just a comments changing from HTTP to HTTPS. So like I mentioned before, I like to make those changes because otherwise it's going to just show up in the diff every time we upgrade Rails. It's better to have the clean diff. Okay, single quotes to double quotes. Just comment changes, so we can totally overwrite that. But I am noticing, I don't know if any eagle eyes spotted this, we've got a config load defaults 5.1 there. That's interesting. We're going to need to deal with that eventually. We removed the new platform defaults for the so we're using them, but we have them set. So, but there may be old things hanging around. So, okay, we're going to overwrite this. Single quotes to double quotes, we're going to overwrite that. That's fine, we're going to overwrite that. Okay, it looks like this moved from action view to I18N, raise on missing translations. We got some new things being added there. That's all fine. Enable fragment caching to true. Oh, logging, not the actual caching. That's fine. Requiring access workcorex integer time. Okay, sure, fair enough. So the only thing here is this thing that we've been preserving all along the way. I'm going to let it overwrite. I'm going to put it back. So production.rb looks fine. We've been just taking these overwrites the whole time. It's just some stuff is moving around. That's all fine. That's fine. And this is a big comment block at the end, so we don't need to worry about that. We can just take that all. And our test, we have the default URL options. That's fine. We're going to overwrite and put it back, put this option back. Okay, so this is the backtrace silencers initializer. It looks like some of the comments changed, and then oh, it's being moved into an optional thing, it looks like. So that's fine. Oh, no, it's a way to disable it using the environment. That's fine. Looks like this changed again from Rails 6 to 6.1. That's fine. Filter parameter logging. Looks like a whole bunch of things got added in 6.1. Just instead of just the password field being filtered from the parameters, we're now getting, or from the logging, we're now getting a bunch of other things. Cool. That's fine. Just make sure that nothing changed with the format of the locale. Nothing did. So we're going to say no to that one. The Puma config, the rack config changed. That's fine. We can take that. And then bin Rails changed. Single quotes to double quotes. I bet the same is going to be in the rake. Yep. And the bin setup. Huh. Where's your double quotes now? Oh well. We had an opportunity for double quotes everywhere and we didn't take it. Okay, this is the yarn, bin yarn. That's fine. We didn't customize that anyway. So it looks like listen couldn't be loaded again. We had dealt with this in well, we had added it. We had certainly added it to the gem file at some point. I wonder whether I accidentally removed it. That's weird. Does anybody remember whether I removed it or accidentally put something back? It's possible I just hit Control Z at some point, or I almost typed bundle update and then hit enter. And if you've ever done that before by accident, you know that it's not great, because what bundle update does is it updates all of the gems in your gem file. And it's way too easy, in my opinion, to accidentally type bundle update and hit enter when you mean to type bundle update and then a particular gem name, and you get that enter key hit before you type your gem name, and then your entire bundle updates. Not that it ever happens to me. So we're putting back the listen gem. I'm not exactly sure why we lost it, but I mean, we ran the specs and they didn't fail with that before. So it must have lost it while I was, oh no, it was the update task that failed, not the specs. So while that runs, in anticipation of being able to work on my computer, I'm going to bring up a new window. And I'm going to bring up example app, new terminal. Okay, so oh, okay. No preset. Oh, okay. What version of Ruby are we on here? No set. Oh, okay. ASDF. So we were talking about ASDF. Silu and I were talking about that earlier on the stream. That's both of our preferred uh, uh, software version manager for things like Node and Ruby and all that stuff. It's what the ThoughtBot laptop script, which is a script to set up your computer quickly, uses. Okay, so we got that going in the background. We'll move it off to the side for now. We got listen added back, I guess. And what failed was the update task. Where did it go? I apparently did a git diff. Oh yeah, because I was looking through when I had removed to see whether the removal of listen was in the. Okay, so we got some migrations copied or created. It occurs to me, I'm not sure when we ran the update task before if it created. I'm almost positive I didn't migrate though, but we're doing it now. Okay. So while this runs, I'll do another plug. ThoughtBot is a software design and development company. Not only do we work with Rails, which we do a lot of, we're one of the first companies in the world to switch to Ruby on Rails back in 2005 after it hit 1.0, but we also develop mobile applications. We do great design work. If you're looking for someone to maintain your existing application or help you make a new one, we're your folks. And you can get in touch with us at thoughtbot.com. Good. Our specs are running. I'm seeing a lot of green. And then what we'll do after this, assuming this passes, is we will address the change in the platform defaults. I'm going to commit first. Okay, so with the platform defaults, we have two problems. We have the 6.1, the new platform defaults for 6.1. Did we ever delete the... I said new platform, I meant new framework defaults. Okay, so we've got, I've been missing this, unfortunately, which is probably part of the reason why our specs have been passing so well, to be honest. That's a shame. So what's been happening is these platform defaults all haven't been coming in into effect, and we've been running on 5.1 platform framework defaults for a little while. Let's think about the right way to approach this. I think what we want to do, we have in application.rb, we have load defaults 5.1. I think what we want to do is we want to go through, let me close some of these tabs here. Oh, this is a little demoralizing that I realize that we need to do this if we want to do it. So yeah, Fabio saying we want to change it to 6.0 first. I think you're right. Thank you. So what we want to do is we don't want to just remove this line. We want to go to 6.0 first. Where's the one for 6? Oh, did I guess that was the one I rectified and then deleted the file, I guess, maybe. Okay, so we're going to run the specs after changing that. So while that runs, I'm just going to peek into these other files, get a sense of... Okay, so we had intentionally left this one in place because we were getting a lot of failures in the belongs to being validated for presence by default. And since I didn't want to change the models too much, particularly because these are going in a book and I prefer to minimize change to the actual source code in the book, decided to leave that for then. So we'll stick with that change. We'll keep that in place. Okay, so in 5.1, form with generated remote forms by default, was false. So it is introducing that option and it's setting it to false in 5.1. I believe that's because in a future version, it's going to go to true. Okay, so good. All our specs pass there. And we have this uncommented. So now we want to uncomment that. In theory, we didn't need to do this because we've already changed to 6.0, so we're already getting these defaults and the specs passed, I'm realizing now. So in theory, this is the 5.1 file, so we didn't actually need to do this one this way. And same for the 5.2, where we changed it to 6.0, so we've already gotten all these defaults. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who's watching. Yes, so yes, so this is exactly, we had the same realization at the same time. So that means that I can just delete these files. And then we are only going to need to deal with the 6.1 file. Oh, there's a lot of things in this one. Okay, what we're going to do, that leads me to, I'm going to change this to 6.1 and we'll give it a ride. We'll see what happens. What changed? We got has many automatically inversing the belong to, tracking variants for active storage in the database, retrying failed jobs, skip after callbacks, okay, that's not going to affect us. Cookies, the same site protection, that's not going to affect us. Yourself CR tokens, I don't think that's going to affect us. So make form with generate non-remote forms by default. That goes to false, just like I had predicted. Okay, so we ran with the 6.1 defaults. We didn't have any failures. So that's great. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So now we're on 6.1 defaults. We did have this hang around because we needed it. Okay, let's commit. Okay. So yeah, and so this is a good point. I'm also, yeah, you usually can, when there's a failure, you can roll it back, that kind of thing. We especially don't need to be worried about it in this case, too, because a lot of times these would be like affecting a running application or that kind of thing too. And since this application isn't running in production, things that might need a more careful migration, we don't need to worry too much about. Okay, so that is 6.1. We are fully running. Everything's up to date. 6.1, latest patch level. Everything's passing. We're still getting the net protocol upgraders. For those of you who weren't here before, we tried to upgrade all the dependencies of this and nothing upgraded. So we're not sure why that is, but we couldn't get it to go away now. Okay, so in theory, we're on 6.1 now, fully passing. We can now go to Ruby 2.7. So let's go, and we can do this on my ARM Mac. Let's just verify. Yep. Oh, it's so much faster. This is going to be great. Oh, unless it gets an error. Okay, so gem install SQLite 3 1.3.6. That doesn't sound right because, oh, I'm in main. Okay, I'm just going to stash that. Oh, you can't stash it. It's not in Git. No, I don't want to do that in main. Okay. 6.1. Let's pull, make sure we've got everything. Cool. I got a little ahead of myself there. I was so excited to be on the actual computer instead of the instance. Okay, so now we are on Ruby. Oh, we need to tell it again. Was it 6 or 9? 2.6, okay. And then since I don't know which one is being actually used, at some point we need to get rid of one of these. Okay. Wow, look how much faster that is. Oh, FFI still, that's okay. So let's look at this. FFI didn't compile. Nokogiri didn't compile. And that's probably because we're locking down that version of Nokogiri. Let's take these one at a time. Let's just make sure that those are the only. So Nokogiri and FFI. Okay. I'm going to just remove the version from Nokogiri. And just tell it to update. Let's see if it. So that time it was successful. And so FFI, we're not actually including FFI here anywhere. So let me just try bundle update FFI. Oh, listen was resolved to 3.8. Okay, bundle update listen. That seems to be what actually needs to be updated. It was locked to 1.12. Okay, we need to do all this stuff at one time. There we go. So for 2 days working on that slower instance, I'm just, I know I keep on mentioning it, but it is so much faster. It's ridiculous. It gives me a new appreciation for what a regular computer is like. Okay, so we've bundled. And now we can. Oh boy, even on this computer, these net protocol things didn't go away. Okay, we've got a lot of failures. Can't find table users. Oh. You know what I should do is run bin setup, because that is a thing. There we go. Okay, we've still got a lot of failures. Could not find table. So I feel like I never know when I'm supposed to do that or not. And I had thought that we weren't supposed to do it anymore. And now it seems like we still need to do it. And I'm talking about you, DB test prepare. maybe it went away at some. Maybe the philosophy went away at some point and then came back because people realized it was flawed. I don't know, but now I just do it, and you can see it fixed the problem. So, okay, we are on Rails 6.1, Ruby 2.7.6, back on an ARM Mac, which I'm super happy about. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, why did node modules get created and it wasn't there before? And it's because I ran bin setup, which runs yarn, even though we don't have. I don't think we have a. Yeah, we don't have any. I guess Rails must have some node modules at this point. No, it's empty. Well, I'm going to commit it just because. Wait, do you want to git ignore node modules? Yeah, you want to git ignore node modules. Is there not really a. How is there not a git ignore in here? Yeah, that's weird. Thank you, Stephanie, for the confirmation. It's always good to have backup. Even though I think I know something. Okay, that's what we want. So we're going to commit those files. Awesome. Okay, that is a complete Ruby upgrade to 2.7.6 to 6.1. The thing that, so we could make another attempt at trying to fix this problem. Part of the reason why we didn't want, we gave up earlier was because it was so slow to bundle. So now that so we already tried. Let's just, so net protocol was net IMAP, net SMTP. So that's where it's coming from, and then net IMAP is mail, the mail gem. 2.81. Oh, Myra says, or is it Mayra? Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Says, I think those errors are related to Nokogiri. That is an interesting thought. Anything is possible. It says that they're in net protocol. And I just upgraded Nokogiri. So unless I'm missing something, I think it's, let's just try bundle update mail, net IMAP, net SMTP, net pop, net protocol. Ooh, it actually changed this time. So on the other computer, it didn't change, or at least when we tried it last time, it didn't change. In this case, it didn't change mail, it didn't change netpop, but it did, and it upgraded net protocol. So great, I'm excited about that. Let's see. Oh, they're still there. That's disappointing. I was optimistic when I saw those things come through. Well, what we can do is just do a quick Google search, see if anything comes up. They've been default gems since Ruby 3, so it may introduce problems to remove net protocol from dependencies on Ruby 2.6. It's not a default gem. Okay. So it sounds to me like we should continue to ignore this. And then when we get to a higher version of Ruby, this problem is going to go away. That's what I'm seeing from this. And maybe when we upgrade some other things, it's going to go away. So cool. Let's just continue on then. We'll keep these upgrades. Because they were working and they're newer versions. Okay. Are we? Stephanie says restarting Spring might clear out those warnings, but are we using Spring? I'm not sure we are. I never config Spring, but does Spring? How do you restart Spring? I haven't used Spring in a long time. Well, while we do that, let's move to Rails 7. Let's just verify the Ruby compatibility. Rails 7 greater than 2.7, so we're fine there. We may run into some problems. It's a little old, but I'm optimistic. So the latest patch level of 7 is 7.0.8. Okay. Fabio's asking, is it not worth it to go to Ruby 3 first? You're actually right. I was so focused, this whole time I've been saying this is the drive to Rails 7. This is the goal is to get to Rails 7. So that's why I'm doing this, because what I really want to do by the end of today is be on Rails 7. And so, but you're right. It is totally worth it to go to Rails 3, Ruby 3. Muscle memory type bundle exec. Okay, so we didn't run undefined method assets for Rails. Did you mean asset host? That's fine. It's coming from the initializer for assets. So Rails 7, one of the biggest changes in Rails 7 was a complete change to how the assets work. So I was expecting that. My goal is to remove Node, have no dependency on Node for this application, and to use the standard imports. So that's the goal for this. So let's go through that together. So we just updated Rails, and now we'll do the Rails app update. Also, does Rails 7 remove Spring? I sort of thought it did, but maybe I've just always made the preference not to have Spring. But I thought the point was made, we have fast computers now, and Spring is no longer necessary and was removed in Rails 7. So that problem may just go away automatically. Okay, we're going to rewrite this file. I'm laughing because at every step of the way, we've had to preserve this default URL options. And I keep on saying we really should move that into an initializer, and not doing it. And then we hit it every single time. So pretty sure we can take all these these changes without any problems. You can see the CSS processor compressor rather is being added with a comment out. So this asset stuff is what we're gonna have to deal with. But since my goal is to go to the new asset system, I'm comfortable with that. So that's fine. Test, that's fine. So we'll just overwrite it and put that default URL options back. Okay, here's our new config assets.rb file, initializers assets.rb file. Single quotes to double quotes, and then node modules is being removed from that. That's exactly what I want to have happen. So that's great. Content security policy. We were previously using the entirely generated version. It looks like some comments changed, that kind of thing. So we're good to take that. Filter parameter logging, just the comments changed. So we can take that. Inflections. We went through like 6 Rails versions with no changes to inflections. And, oh, this is just single quotes to double quotes. Fine. Single quotes to double quotes. Okay, so remember I made a snide comment that Rails 6 was changing, 6.1 was changing single quotes to double quotes, but missed bin setup. And here it is getting done. Every single time. Oh, no, this is the asset problem in config initializers. Okay. So we're going to need to fix that problem. What I'm going to do is go over to the upgrade guide for Rails 7, upgrading from Rails 6.1 to Rails 7. Oh, okay. So it says if your application uses Spring, it needs to be upgraded to at least version 3.0. How do you tell whether your application uses Spring or not? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay. Sprockets is now an optional dependency. Did we have it? No, we didn't. So we just wrote config environments test. So that should be, I just want to verify. So what it's saying is cache classes should be false. turn false under Spring and add, oh, that's if we use Spring. Okay, let's answer this question. Are we using Spring or not? How do we tell? Spring is not in our gem file. Is it in our gem file lock? It's not in our gem file lock. So to me, that means we're not using Spring at all, which is what I expected. We do have a Spring config file. I think we can just remove that. Okay, we're still hitting the same error. Actually, you know what? I'm making a mistake here. I'm changing things about Spring when we don't even have the application running and that kind of thing. That's a mistake because I could go and break something and then not realize that I've done it, and then we get to later on and it's broken, but I have no record of when it broke. So I need to pull back from the Spring diversion. We need to stay focused on assets not working from config initializers assets. So let's stay focused on that. So I'm looking through the guides. Actually, this is a little small, isn't it, for you? Looking through the guides to see. So I didn't see anything about that. Let's just do a double check here. And this came, if you remember, it went from single quotes to double quotes. So okay, so that is define method assets for Rails application configuration. This came from our Rails application upgrade. So I think we can look to see whether this is an obvious thing. Config assets comes from sprockets. Okay, so sprockets was removed entirely in Rails 7. We were never explicitly including it. And so yeah, but why did the configuration, okay, this is a thing for that our friend Rails diff here. From 6176 to 7.0.8. Okay, so this is part of the standard configuration. So that is not anything we want to remove or comment out. I'm just going to do a search for config assets in general. So you're suggesting, what if we just comment out the line? The reason why I don't want to do that is because it is part of the standard Rails config. So that's the reason why I don't want to do that. I totally get what you're saying, though. It's like, could we just comment that out and move beyond this error? But I suspect there's something fundamental wrong with our configuration or our gems or something like that. Um, so so let me just check our CSS. Yeah, that's what I suspected. And JavaScript's, yeah, we're just, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try, we have coffee and Sass Rails, and we have Uglifier. Um, so I'm just going to try removing all those. Just confirming that they're removed from the lock file. They are. Let's see if that. Okay, that didn't fix the problem. Okay, let's go back to this. If you removed the sprocket's gem, you need to remove those lines. But this is talking about different lines. Okay, you convinced me. Let's just try. Okay. So what's going on there? It's part of the standard Rails config. So, but part of the standard Rails config is not to have sprockets. So why? Why? I don't know. I don't like to not know. I don't like to to have things happen that I'm not sure of, because that's how you can run into trouble later. Okay, let's fix this spec. It should not allow values of other, uninitialized constant other for submittable type. Yeah, so Fabio says maybe other gems are outdated. That's what I was thinking too. So let's, and maybe, well, so, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's pause here and clean up our gem file. So our specs are running except for that one failure. So feel pretty confident taking a detour for something. We also need to deal with the new framework defaults. So that's also a possible source of the problem. Assets doesn't appear in there. Okay, we've got a list of things. We want to do the gems. We want to do the defaults. Let's do the defaults first. So we're going to try just going to 7.0. Cool. Same failure. So we're good with those defaults. and we can remove that file. Okay, so we're now on the framework defaults and we ran app update. We can push that branch to make sure our work is secure. We do have that one spec failure, but now let's there were no, if I remember right. Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay. I'm on a faster computer now, so I can work in smaller steps. So what I'm doing is removing the hard-coded versions from the files, from the gem file, and doing the upgrade for each of the new gem versions, making sure that things still pass afterwards. Still same error. Good. Cool. Now these loofah and rack, we had put those. Stephanie, you're in the chat. We had we had put loofah in the gem file. I believe we should be able to remove it now. It's no longer a dependency at all, if anything, if I remember right. So that's fine. And then we had also needed to put rack in there to resolve a Ruby version compatibility issue. So we should also be able to remove that. Awesome. Now, did we also put Nokogiri there to resolve a dependency issue? I believe we did. Awesome. We're cooking. Boy, it's so much faster to do. Okay, so cool. We hit more failures. So let's put that back. Okay. We're really cooking now, especially on this faster computer. We're able to bundle a lot faster. It's allowing us to take this detour. Going to take a quick, we're about halfway through now the time, and take a quick break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes to resume. Thank you all for watching. Let's do something different. Oh, no, let's go back to rock because it's Friday. Okay, we're back. Welcome back. Ava says, I think it's time to dig into that test that's failing. I don't disagree, except I sort of do. We should do that, but I do want to. I actually want to try to drop these versions because we were on a roll there. And I get an exhilarated feeling every time I bundle update test unit. Every time I run bundle now, and it's so fast after having been on that slower computer for so long. Uh, I want to take advantage of that right now. Okay. Actually, we don't need to, we shouldn't need to do this at all. We were hard coding test unit and mini test versions before, because even though we don't use them in the application because of version incompatibility, so we now no longer need that. Awesome. Born is the only thing so far that we've run into trouble with. Bundle update capybara. Same failure, but we did get a deprecation from capybara selector warning locator integer for selector radio button must be an instance of string or symbol. Okay, we can fix that later. And we'll leave born the way that is, because that would be a big sidetrack to go fix that right now when we've got a failing spec. So remove hard-coded gem versions. Perfect. Okay, let's dig into this failure here. So what it is saying, the error is uninitialized constant other. Now this is interesting. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to submit submittable type column on question to other. Submittable type is a single table inheritance type field. And so I think what is probably happening is that when we're setting that, rather than it being rejected, Rails is trying to constantize it, or something's trying to constantize it, and then it's throwing that error. So let's go over and look at question.rb. So we have the question types here, and we're supposed to be validating the submittable type is included in the presence of that. And just, so it is being, so the type is being constantized by build submittable. So it's possible that that is what's causing that, or it's possible that Rails is doing it. Since this is just a validation spec, I'm sort of curious what happens if I just comment this out. I want to see whether that validation spec passes, and that'll tell us whether it's that code that's causing that problem or not. So it's not that code that's causing that problem, because we just commented it out. Good to know. So that means it's probably Rails that's causing that problem. Let me just double check that by doing another call to constantize. Okay, that's different. So that's not the case. It's probably Rails that's doing that, which means is this spec, there's a spec up here where for all the question types, it is checking whether those are valid. And then for a different one, it's checking whether it fails. So the question is this spec still valid? in my opinion, the spec is still valid because we do have a validation that it's not included. But if Rails is doing that, well, if what we were trying to set was a valid constant, then it's going to fail in the way that we expect. But what it's happening now is it's failing in another way. So another way that we could do this would be to take a different thing that is a valid constant. I don't know how I feel about this, but so for example, if we were to choose user here, there. So now it is a valid constant. So when Rails tries to constantize it, it is now failing our actual validation because it's not allowed. How do we feel about that? So by putting this here with user, I feel decent about that. One way we might be able to improve it is if instead of using user, we use the class itself. And my reasoning there is that user might go away and then the question spec would need to change for a completely unrelated reason. But by using question, the question spec will always have the question class available to it. So that's my reasoning there. I don't know. You can you can agree or disagree, but that's what I'm thinking. And I'm sticking to it. Okay. So all our specs are passing, but we do have the initializer problem. Oh, sorry, initializer. We have the deprecation problem. Capybara. So select a radio button must be an instance of string or symbol. This will raise an error in the future version of Capybara, and it's called from right here. It's interesting. I wouldn't. Must be an instance of string or symbol. So what is it if not a string or a symbol? Looks like text to me. Where is this being used? Oh, that's a terrible thing to search for. So it's the survey taker. That's the answer creator. That's the answer creator. It's interesting. I don't see where this is being used, but I'm probably just missing it. It's being called from somewhere. Let's just double check this naming. Okay. Then what we want is survey taker. So this is using page objects. I don't know if you've ever worked on an app that uses them. It's a strategy that helps keep feature specs cleaner and self-contained by wrapping the things that say how to do things in your application in an object which is responsible and as well named methods. for doing things. So in this case, we're looking for taker.answer. It helps if you spell it right. Okay, I see what the problem is. We're calling taker.complete, which then calls answer. So our actual specs didn't have it there. So what this is answer text. What's that zip method? Zip method, when no block is given, it returns a new array of array size, of self size, whose elements are arrays. Do we have an array? Oh yeah. Okay, so this is passing in the question title and the answer text. And then question title is being used to find the question. And then if it's an open submittable, fill in the question text. It is an open field on our survey. And if it is a multiple choice or a scalar submittable, which is like a slider, then choose it. And where it's happening is line 31 here. So it's saying that's not a symbol. The selector radio button must be an instance of string or symbol. Well, I'm going to do... Oh, and now I'm realizing this object is used in multiple specs, but we're only getting one deprecation error. So that to me means in one of these places, there really is not a string or a symbol being passed. So let's look. Okay, well, we're passing in strings there. Right there. It's an integer. Okay, let's check the other ones. Taker. Okay, those are all strings. 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 String. Taker complete with a string. Okay, so it is just that one instance, which is why we have one deprecation error. And we can fix this by making that a string instead. We haven't converted this application to use single quotes, so to say standard, I'm going to do that. Awesome, no more deprecation warning. Awesome, all our specs pass without any deprecation warnings. Wow, my spelling on that one was atrocious. Deprecation warning. Okay, we're on Rails 7. We have the app running, fully passing. We've updated the config files. We've changed the platform defaults. What we haven't really done is make sure that the asset stuff is working properly. We left some of that stuff in place, is my feeling. So we're going to be able to do what we haven't done yet because we were running on that other instance and the ports weren't mapped. We're going to be able to go to the application Bintef doesn't exist. Actually, Rails DB seed. Cool. So this is an example application. There's not a lot of assets. There's not a lot of styles. What I'm looking for is making sure we don't have errors. Not seeing any errors, but I'm just going to make sure that we're including things properly. Not quite sure what happened there. Sorry about that. I don't know off the top of my head. We're going to redo the Rails asset pipeline. And I don't know off the top of my head how to set up a clean Rails asset pipeline with import maps. And we also have this legacy stuff hanging around that we need to get rid of. So I am going to look up some documentation for how to do that. The problem is the standard Rails guides are not going to help us there because they don't really address. So what we want in theory is the upgrading guide is going to help us here. We already removed sprockets. And what I'm looking for is a section that talks about import maps or asset pipeline. Okay, there wasn't anything there. I'm just going to peek over in application layout. So we're using style sheet link tag and JavaScript include tag. Okay. Okay, import maps to Rails. It's automatically included in Rails 7 plus for new applications. So, but it's not in the gem file because the gem file isn't updated when we do that. I'm guessing that that's the problem with that assets line. I bet import map Rails adds back the config.assets. And since we didn't have that in our gem file, no. Where did it put it? Okay, it just put it at the bottom. Whoops. I think what I'll um, so it put a version, sort of not what I'm hoping for this application. I'm hoping to get rid of the versions and rely on gem file lock, but so that we can, but whatever, it's fine. Oh, it already bundled. Okay, then we need to install the import maps. So what it added was this line, JavaScript import map tags. This is going to replace our JavaScript include tag for application, so we can get rid of that. Cool. Create JavaScript application.js. Created the vendor JavaScript directory. It appended something to the application manifest file. So what it appended was this. Yeah, so the location changed. Right? It went from app assets JavaScript just with an S to app JavaScript without anything, and then vendor JavaScript. So we no longer need this link directory. Not sure whether we need the link style sheets. If you are listening or watching and you know, let me know. Okay, and then there's the import map config. Cool. Just restarting the server. Okay. So now let's see. So now we're not getting any errors. So Mayra asks, if you remove sprockets, what's managing your assets? So it's a good question. Import maps is managing the JavaScript. And we would be running into an issue here if we had images. But Rails introduced a lighter weight image asset pipeline for the other things that aren't included in import maps. What's it called? Prop shaft. So that's we're not including that, but it's not giving us a problem because we don't have any images that are actively being used. So that's, I think, what's going on there. But that's a good call out. Okay, so everything's passing. The assets. So we can look at the. Whoops. I hit the wrong thing. So what's being included now is the application style sheet that's loading, and the import map, which is loading now. So we're no longer getting those 404s there. And the question about the what's serving the style sheet, I think when we added, well, that's a good question. Does anybody know what's serving that style sheet now? Is it is it Rails just doing it because it's just a CSS file? I think that might be the answer. There's actually just a CSS file here. And so I bet if we go to it and we go to this CSS file, why isn't it showing up as an error in the logs? It's interesting. Let's go to our Rails upgrade guide and see, or where was I getting the, oh, import map. So I'm curious, it's been a little while since I've done this. The transition to Rails 7 happened a little while ago. So prop shaft is the new thing. We're using import maps with standard JavaScript. So we're not going to need any processing. Okay, so upgrading from sprockets to prop shaft. See, we were never, in this application, we went from 3.2 to through the Rails versions and the introduction of sprockets, but we never set up Webpacker. So these instructions aren't going to be useful for us because we don't need to replace Webpacker with anything. Yeah, these are not going to help us here. I think what we want to do is see. See, these instructions are not, we don't want to introduce JS bundling. We're using import maps. So that's fine. And so I'm thinking we actually don't want to install prop shaft at all. I think instead of this, I think we're going to call that good for now in terms of upgrading the assets. I think that these files stay, and we're now using import maps. The CSS might not be working right, but we don't know that for sure because there's nothing in the CSS. It's not saved. But rather than spend more time resolving that, let's upgrade Ruby. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the Ruby version file because we no longer need that. We're going to go to tool versions. ASDF list Ruby. I think, yeah, the latest version I have installed is 3.2.2. So we'll go to that. Along the way, we needed to drop, we were running into on the instance at some point with Ruby gems broken, we were running into certificate error. So I temporarily changed that to HTTP. So what I'm hoping to see here is that everything passes and we got rid of those errors or warnings in the beginning. So we got rid of those warnings. So upgrading Ruby changed that net, that gem that was giving us those warnings. Awesome. We no longer need the asset group. So we do know removing this version on born caused a bunch of failures. And we know that CSS is doing, wow. Well, we did it. We're on Rails 7. We came a long way through many, many Rails versions from 3.2, every single minor point release, although we skipped Rails 4.1 because I felt confident with skipping that at the time. And we made it. I want to say thank you to everyone who came on this journey with me from Thoughtbot and joined the stream. It's been a blast working with you. And I want to thank all of you for watching this. These live streams are a brand new thing for us, just started when we started this Rails upgrade. But we're not over, we're not done. So I'm going to be back next week, next Friday from 2 to 5 US Eastern time. Other folks might decide to stream throughout the week, but that's the next scheduled slot rather. We're done with our Rails upgrade. Ruby Science is going to be released. So what are we going to work on? Not quite sure yet, but what I do want to do is we've spent enough time on sort of infrastructure Rails upgrade stuff. So what I want to do is I want to go to a real production Rails app that I work on all the time, pick out an actual ticket and work on it live on the stream, end to end. So we can do a full test driven development life cycle. So that's the gist of what we're going to do next Friday afternoon, as we'll go through actual feature development, test driven, full end to end of an actual ticket for an actual production system. And my goal will be to pick something that we can start from scratch at the beginning of the session and push it to production by the end. So that's the goal. I I really appreciate you, everybody tuning in. Again, Thoughtbot is available for your Rails upgrades, maintenance, creating a new Rails application, creating a new mobile application, designing and developing and validating something. Appreciate everyone coming along for this journey with me. And I will see you next week at this time, actually, a little earlier. Thank you all again, and I really appreciate it. You've all been a big help along the way. And everybody have a great weekend.